Hey, if you missed this last week in the Grave Robber series, here's what we talked about. We talked about the miracle where Jesus walked on the water, one of the most famous miracles that Jesus ever did. And, you put yourself in the disciples' shoes and think just for a moment about what they went through, because they'd already rode across this thing earlier in the day, fed 20,000 people, hiked up a mountain, hiked back down a mountain, gotten in a boat, and now they're doing this again at night, which is not optimal because people tell us that on the Sea of Galilee that storms often came up, violent storms often came up on that sea and still do to this day at nighttime because of the way the wind patterns work. And so these guys all of a sudden find themselves in a violent storm, and they are rowing for everything they've got. They're rowing for survival. And again, we talked about this week that a lot of you feel that way. A lot of you feel like that you're just like, you'd like to quit, but if you quit, the boat's going over, and you know it, and you're giving it everything you've got, and you're struggling and you're straining. And one of the things that is interesting is we talked about, why would Jesus have put them in that situation? I mean, Jesus knew that was going to happen. Jesus knew it was going to happen that way. So why would he have done that? And what we talked about is, we talked about the fact that Jesus a lot of times wants to grow our faith by bringing us to the end of ourselves, by bringing us to our own limits and beginning to help us realize that, wow, I actually need Jesus in this situation. And the disciples had to be very aware of the fact that Jesus wasn't there. But also, the thought is Jesus didn't actually leave them alone. Mark tells us that Jesus saw them straining, and that's a miracle in and of itself, because Jesus is up on a mountain away from the shoreline. They're 3 and 4 miles out into the sea, and it says that he was completely in tune with what they were going through in the moment, and just skips out on the sea to go save them. And so it's really interesting when you look at what happened there. And they probably thought God wasn't paying any attention. I'm sure that they may have even talked about, would have been nice if Jesus had showed up and gotten in the boat when he was supposed to, because they kind of waited for a moment before they left, and it got to be dusk and they thought, we got to go. And they probably thought, where's Jesus? Like, why isn't he here right now? Why doesn't he care? And it's interesting. We kind of feel like that if we can't see God working, that God's not working. If we don't see that God cares, and we don't see visible evidence that he's doing something to rescue us or help us in the middle of the situation we're in, we feel like he's just not there at all. And so this thing scared them to death, because all of a sudden they see Jesus walking toward them on the sea. And that's, when you see people places where they're not supposed to be, it's creepy, it's scary. It's like sliding up your shade on an airplane and seeing somebody walk down the wing towards you. You're going to freak out. And so Jesus tries to calm them down. He says, hey, it's me. Then it says at one point when they would let him into the boat. So it was kind of like, they were like, okay, convince us. And then once they were sure it was Jesus, they let him into the boat. And that's when the peace came. That's when the peace came. That's when they were immediately, all the things that they were striving for, trying to get done, and just unable to make one step forward, 2 steps back. All of that stuff, all of a sudden, they were at their destination. Jesus did for them what they were not able to do for themselves. And he brought peace to the midst, in the midst of a terrible situation where these guys were just struggling to make it. And so our bottom line was, in the storms of life, Jesus is there for you, and only he can bring peace. And we look for all kinds of other things to bring us peace. We've said all throughout this series that we say we trust God. We just work all the time to make sure we never have to. And these guys were in a situation where they were at the end of their limits. They had to trust. And what they found is that when they invited Jesus in, that's when peace came. That's when they were able to live at peace above their circumstances. And that's possible for you. No matter what you're going through, no matter how much you're struggling, it might be that you're trying to do the right thing. These guys were doing what Jesus told them to do. And that may be the hardest thing in the world to do right now. And you may be struggling with that concept. But no matter what it is that you're going through, if you have a relationship with Christ and you continue to invite him into that process and continue to seek him, and your hope is in him instead of anything else, then you've got the opportunity to be at peace, even above whatever's going on in your circumstances. It's something that the world doesn't understand. It's something that people who don't have a relationship with Christ don't understand. But you have that opportunity to live above your circumstances instead of just reacting to it, being caught up in it, feeling like you're being swallowed up in it. Instead, you can live at peace when you invite him in.